back. I'm Tedward, and welcome to the 2023 Acura Integra. Now, we've already done a full comparo video between the Integra and my Honda Civic Si because they are essentially the same car, but equipped very differently. This is the top tier Integra, so we've got the 6-speed manual transmission, adaptive dampers, and all the goodies from these micro suede seats to Wi-Fi hotspots. But now, I just want to show you what it's like to go for a drive and enjoy the car. We even have a heads-up display. Now, already on those speed bumps, I can notice this is a much softer car with these adaptive dampers, allowing me to be a little less jostled on the way out of this parking garage, which I occasionally end up in. Now we have the same 6-speed manual transmission as the Civic Si, the same 1.5 liter turbo 4-cylinder as the Civic Si, making the same amount of power. This car is a little bit heavier, so its 0 to 60 is slightly slower, but by a negligible amount. I don't notice the speed difference in this car compared to my Si. But I do notice that there is a more premium feel of this vehicle, and that's actually really nice. It feels slightly more substantial, not in a massive way, but in a way that if you did spend the extra $10,000 on this car compared to the Si, it's gonna go somewhere. It's not completely wasted. I find the use case for a car like this is really going to suit somebody who maybe lives in the city or ends up in the city a lot for work, because what I really love about these cars is how light and sort of chuckable they are. You know, when you've got a big, heavy Grand Tourer car, they are fantastic on the highway. They feel really stable and planted, and you can go really fast and all those things. But I gotta say, when you are just like ripping around city streets, the lighter, the better. Little bit of torque steer, but we do have that helical limited slip differential doing us some favors and making sure it's putting down that power. We can turn right on red here. Providence, so you never know where people are just going to pull over and park. They do whatever they please. Auto start stop, doing us some favors for our MPGs, especially getting out of the city. As the 5th generation of Integra, if we consider the RSX and Integra, which, you know, we do, this car definitely provides some less exciting things in terms of powertrain. A 1.5 liter turbo 4-cylinder that revs to like 6,500 RPM is certainly not like an 8,000 or 9,000 RPM K-Series. Like, sorry guys, it's a bummer. It's a bummer, but we don't live in that world anymore. The thing is, though, this still has torque, so while, sure, it doesn't have that insane character of the old days, it's still probably doing similar 0 to 60s, if not faster, even though in today's automotive culture, a 7-second 0 to 60 might not be that impressive. But what it can do is serve as a really luxurious place to live in a fairly entry-level price, because even at $37,000, and I'm not saying that that's not a lot of money, but it's hard to get into a BMW, a Mercedes, or an Audi at $37,000 with reasonable features, right? Because what we're sitting in right here is the top tier of this car at $37,000. We're not starting there. So we've got the ELS Studio 3D sound system. We've got the power adjustable seats, we've got heated seats, we've got the micro suede inserts. You know, it looks the part if this is what you like. And if you're trying to keep the car under 40 grand, I do think this offers quite a bit in the way of luxury for that money. However, I do fully understand that you're dealing with a front-wheel drive, and a lot of people want an all-wheel drive platform car with only 200 horsepower. So this is one of those vehicles that you're really just gonna make some decisions about, like, what is actually important to you. With fuel prices as they are, I will honestly say that a smaller engine with less power is now something that I genuinely appreciate, because my Civic Si, I'm able to get like 40 to 43 miles per gallon on the regular, not on regular fuel, but at premium fuel, 91. And I gotta say, like, it makes all the difference in the world to know that I can fill my 12.4 gallon tank for very little money, very infrequently. And the Integra offers a more solid, substantial feel with better sound insulation and adaptive dampers if you choose this, you know, for not a whole lot of money. I think having a car that has modes that actually matter is exciting. Like my Civic Si, the modes don't really matter that much, right? Because all it's doing is changing the steering and the throttle sensitivity, which, sure, that is something, but I think when it comes down to either power adjustment, which this doesn't do, or more importantly, adaptive damper adjustment, that's where this switch starts to matter, and I appreciate that. Got my cruise control on the wheel, slightly different wheel setup than the Civic Si because we have this glass display. It's all digital instead of having a single analog gauge and then the limited LCD screen on the Si. But I do like being able to use my cruise control without the adaptive feature. I do not really love adaptive cruise control in most scenarios because the car would have slowed down for me approaching that when I just want to put my blinker on, maintain my speed, and get in the left lane and pass them. You know, for me, that's great, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. So if we take this distance button with the cruise control off at the moment, see ACC mode selected. If I hold it again, cruise mode selected, and then I can just use that to set and forget. So that's how I typically drive. I like using cruise control because it keeps me from getting speeding tickets. But I also don't like the car to be slowing down on me, not because I don't want to slow down, but also because it's going to waste fuel every time it slows down and has to speed back up. That's fuel gone. On this screen, I typically keep it on the MPGs. I like looking at my fuel economy, but we have some good data that we can glean from this, and we can change some things. But the thing I like the most about the Acura versus the Civic Si is that I can see my tire pressures individually. That is not something I can do on my Civic. And the reason that's so valuable is that if you've ever been in a situation where you have like run something over and you go, oh no, did I just puncture that tire? It's really nice to be able to look directly at this real-time data and see if you are losing pressure slowly. That happened to me in the Acura NSX, actually. I had an NSX press car and I hit a pothole in the winter, didn't see it, nailed this pothole, and I thought, that took it pretty well. And then I decided, you know, I better look at the tire pressures. And I looked at the tire pressures, and I was just watching the front left tire, PSI by PSI, losing pressure. And it really sucked. But it was good information because I could look at it quickly because it was losing a couple PSI before it gave me an alert. Come on in, fellow Honda. I will let you go. I really do like the visibility out of these cars. They've done a great job, and they give you pretty oversized mirrors, which is nice as well. Now, I'm pretty much always driving my car in this type of traffic. I don't want to wonder if I'm merging into a vehicle. I had a 350Z for a long time, and that car had terrible visibility in that rear quarter on both sides, really. And I can't tell you how many times I went to merge onto a highway, and quite embarrassingly, let's see, am I going to be able to get in here? Yeah, we got it. people using the passing lane without passing is a major problem in Rhode Island. Keep right except to pass. That is my favorite sign in the whole world. And yet, nobody can read. Interesting. So while I've got this heads-up display, I actually don't find myself looking at it very often because I really like the dashboard. I think it's a nice display, and I find myself getting all of that information really clearly written down here for me. I think BMWs, for example, I like a heads-up display on a BMW because sometimes like they're a little hard to interpret, especially now with the crazy like almost all red design. There's not enough like contrast to understand what's going on sometimes, so a heads-up display on a car like that is really helpful. On this car, you know, you get it with the tech package. It costs you a little money, but I don't think it's fully necessary, but I appreciate that it's there. Auto rev match on this car is pretty darn good. Let's do this. I think we can get around a few more cars if we play this game. Oh, no, never mind. I lose. Got behind an Iowa plate. That's never a good idea. I really like the auto rev matching on this car. I think it revs really quickly. It's a single mass flywheel, which revs up nice and quickly. It's somewhat light. But what that does mean is that you don't get that damping from a dual mass flywheel. It doesn't feel aggressive in that way though, so it's not like you're getting in a race car. I don't know, maybe those who are buying an Integra aren't familiar with like a really violent, lightweight flywheel with a stage 3 clutch. But no, I mean, I think when I hear single mass flywheel, I go, oh boy, that's gonna be rough. It's not. It functions really well. And I think the 6-speed is just the move. And unfortunately, you cannot get the 6-speed in any lower trim level. So you do have to put up the money if you want the Integra in a 6-speed, because you cannot get it on the lower trim levels. You've got to go with the highest trim level. Otherwise, you're getting a CVT. And while the CVT is fine, Honda CVTs are not the worst in the world. I'm still not a CVT guy. But I think I understand the marketing behind it, because this is sort of like the luxury SI, and you cannot get the SI in a CVT. So if that's going to be 6-speed only, then I guess they're just saying, well, you know, if you want the lower trim levels, just get the Civic. If you are a new manual driver, I think this is a really easy car to learn on. It teaches a little bit of patience to be smooth, but you're not going to get yourself in trouble, and you're not going to be bucking all around if you mess it up. It's fairly forgiving. There's also quite a bit of torque throughout the rev range. That torque comes on quite early with this turbo, and that means that like if you're trying to learn like where should I shift, when should I shift, or maybe you're like a little nervous, you're like, ooh, I don't know if I should go for that downshift because like too many things are happening at once, you know, typical new manual driver things. You can get into the throttle and things will happen. So there is torque available. Despite all of the luxury above and beyond a Honda Civic Si, I do sometimes find myself forgetting that I'm sitting in a more well-appointed cabin. I mean, it drives essentially the same. There's very minor differences between the two, and I think you would have had to live with one or the other to be able to point out some of those differences. But even then, it is relatively subtle. So if there are things that are just genuinely important to you that the Integra has, and you've got to spend that money for it, go for it. Like I don't see any problem with that, and I think the car is going to hold its value. We live in a weird world right now where it used to be you'd drive a car off the lot and it was worth 10 grand less immediately. Now it's the opposite. If you've got a car for MSRP, you're gonna have a car that's worth 10 grand more. It's very strange, and I just think this is a really great tool for commuting. I've got to say, I really do like the steering in this car. I think this chassis is just so nimble and ready to party. if you're somebody who likes driving, you will enjoy the car. You would absolutely enjoy the car. If you're somebody who just has a power craving, it's gonna be a bit lackluster. But if you're somebody that likes to tackle a corner and brake a little late and chuck a car in and get on the power early, this rigid chassis, this direct steering, this limited slip differential will all come together in a way that's going to be rewarding for you. That rev limiter comes in just a little early. I should be used to this by now, but I still want it to wind out more. That's okay. Thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. I hope you enjoyed this little commute in the Acura Integra, and I know a lot of folks are trying to make some difficult decisions about car purchases right now because everything is so expensive. And it's nice that there's some cars that still retain reasonable pricing that are fun to drive. You may not get the crazy 500-600 horsepower monsters out of it. You got to spend big money for that stuff, but I do think it's enjoyable that you can get a safe, fun commuter car with a great sound system and well-appointed interior that you will be proud to put your friends, coworkers, and family in at any point. So don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one.